And welcome back to TVS Presents Sport Magazine on radio. I'm John Daly. This segment is brought to you by Sellworthy. Need to tell your company's story digitally and online? Just go to sellworthy.com, and Sellworthy is spelled with only one L. Let's get the view on sports and the pandemic from Beantown. Ken Lakin is a trial lawyer who also represents pro athletes and actors. He has lived in the Boston area all of his life. He is a graduate from Boston College undergrad and also law school. If you saw our episode on Undercover Jet Setter on Boston and being at a Yankee game at Fenway Park, then you saw him there. He was a source of great information for us. He joins us from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, always great to be on, my friend. I hope all is well and everybody's hanging in there during this pandemic.
We are doing well, and also we both survived hurricanes, that's for sure.
Yes.
First, how brutal is it to watch what the Red Sox are doing now?
I would say as a lifetime Red Sox fan, it's absolutely brutal. It's a complete sellout of the marketplace that is still leads the league in tickets prices and vendor prices. And yet we've now been, other than Chris Sale having Tommy John's surgery, and Rodriguez going out with the pandemic-related issue, and then obviously trading Sale, you've gone from a four-man rotation, pretty qualified four-man rotation, down to Nathan Eovaldi as your only guy, and 3-4 guys off a bus stop for your backup pitches. So it's a pretty deplorable situation right now. And to be frank with you, John, the fans are not happy about it. So it's not going over well. The Red Sox are trying to sell it that way, but it's not going over well. The only good thing for the Red Sox management is that it's a short season.
Do you think they're trying to they realize this is kind of a lost season anyway, because they're only going to be playing 60 games, and kind of let's get some of the young guys some experience, and then what we'll do next season, now we'll go get some other players. Do you think maybe they're kind of, we'll take a break from this and we'll go at it strong in 2021?
Yeah, I think that's true. It's funny that you said I'm calling you from my summer house on Cape Cod, and one of my neighbors is Peter Gametz, and I ran into Peter yesterday while I was going out to get my newspaper, and he said to me, I talked to him for a little while, and he said they're looking for the first-round draft pick. That's what it sounds like to him. So I think that kind of is a crystal ball as to where the Red Sox are in 2020.
How different is it in Boston right now? I mean, usually this time of year, it's just busy. Red Sox playing. People are out there. They're visiting. It's one of the great cities of the world. How different is it there?
It's surreal, John. I can't really explain it to you. The downtown area in the buildings, for the commercial buildings, Walkers, is basically depleted down to 10 to 15% capacity. There's hardly any tourists in the city whatsoever. And as you say, it's one of the best cities in the world, particularly a walkable city that you're easy to get around. Unlike New York, it's a very walkable city, and it's surreal. I mean, a lot of my friends own restaurants in the city, Seaport District, and other sections of Boston, the Fenway area, and they're just really taking a beating financially from the pandemic and the lack of tourists or anybody else in the city. So it's been pretty bad. I know that's the case around the whole country, but it's been very difficult for Boston.
This is TVS Presents Sport Magazine on radio. I'm John Daly. We're talking to Boston area attorney Ken Lakin. He is a trial lawyer who also represents professional athletes and actors. His website is lakinslaw.com, and that is spelled LAKINS law.com. Let's talk a little bit about the law, Ken. Are these leagues and are these college teams, are they facing some liability if some of these players are permanently harmed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had some of my ex-athletes and present athletes ask me some of those questions. Most of the CBAs have waiver liability issues or workers' compensation because you're technically employed by the organization, so you can't sue for third-party negligence or third-party liability claims. So the teams are protected from that. Has to other third parties who come in contact with the team, I really don't know. That would be difficult. I think that's part of the reasoning and rationale that most team owners and the team leagues themselves have not wanted to have fans involved in the case there's any exposure to the coronavirus. So from a technical standpoint, most of the teams are protected for liability with respect to the players.
I know, because you're a big Boston College fan as well. I did a commentary a few weeks ago saying that college sports will never return to the way it was. What do you think? Do you think you're going to see regular Boston College football games, Boston College basketball games, or is that over?
No, I think it's still going to come back. I think that you're looking at a potential vaccine in Q1 of 21. I believe that's, hopefully the stock that I'm investing in some of these companies, particularly some Boston bio companies, that I think we will have some kind of vaccine. It'll be a roll-in play. I think that teams will take it on a prorated basis. It's 20%, 50%, 70%. But I think we'll get back there. It certainly won't be in 2021, but I think it'll be somewhere down in the next 2 to 3 years. It's interesting you say that, John, because I have a good friend of mine who's high up in management for the Bruins in Boston, and some of their season ticket holders, where they've done polls from the management for the fans who are season ticket holders, what's their potential capacity coming back, and you'd be stunned. It was a very low number in the first two go-arounds that, basically only 20 or 30% they'd be coming back at least immediately. Dragging it out, maybe down the road they'd be come back. But in the near future, I agree with you, it's going to be very difficult. But I think long term, it will slowly come back.
We are talking to attorney Ken Lakin from the Boston area. He's a big observer of sports in New England, especially Boston. He's also a trial lawyer, but also an attorney for professional athletes and actors. His website is lakinslaw.com. It's LAKINS law.com. Kenny, let's go back a little bit to the past. You told me you were actually in Fenway Park in the 70s when Red Sox fans were throwing bottles at Mickey Rivers. You said you had nothing to do with it. Is that right?
I don't think there's any actual witnesses that are still alive. But I do recall sitting in the bleachers as a young man, teenager, and seeing not bottles but batteries being thrown at Mickey in center field because he had to put a helmet on, John, because it was getting that bad. Because the week before was the famous Carlton Fisk in the other catcher, I can't remember, in Mickey, that they all ran into each other at the plate, had the brawl at Yankee Stadium. So yes, there was anticipation of the following week. They came up to Fenway to play the Red Sox, and my brother John, who you know well, and some of my other friends, we snuck into Fenway through the ambulance entrance. We went underneath the gate and snuck through the ambulance entrance, got in there, and we're out in the bleachers when that happened. And that was quite surreal. And that New York-Boston hatred, trust me, is still very, very real in this city.
Well, by that happening, when I ended up going to Fenway right after that, I tried to sneak in a bottle of peach schnapps, and we had to stick it down the pants of one of our other buddies who doesn't drink. And he barely got in, but he did get in. So I just want you to know, you almost stopped our peach schnapps in Fenway Park in the bleachers on a cold summer night. So at least we got it there. Hey, do we still have that feeling between Yankees and Red Sox like it was back in the 70s? I know there were some skirmishes with A-Rod back in, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. Do we still feel that today?
Yeah, you don't feel it as much, Sean. I think there's, more. I think baseball has a lot of problems. I really do. I think that the young generation is not following it the attendance reflects that, the TV ratings reflect that. So yeah, I don't think it's at the level it should be or has been in the past. But you always have that underpinning, even when the Patriots play, any of the New York teams, particularly the Giants after those 2 Super Bowls. And then you always have that business sector between Boston and New York, and the schools, and the New Yorkers will come up here to our schools at Harvard and MIT and Boston College. And there's always that intermix between, Boston and New York, and the New Yorkers and the Bostonians will say, Connecticut, get out of the way, you're in the middle. So it's always that little business fight, sports fight that's always an underpinning between New York and Boston. That'll always be there.
Well, growing up in Connecticut, I always said Connecticut was the DMZ when it came between Yankees and Red Sox. How are you coping this summer with all this going on? I mean, obviously you're a lawyer, but you get a chance to go down to the Cape. Is it difficult being a sports fan?
Yeah, it has been. I think it has been. I'm like you, a true sports fan. Even when we only had horse racing going on, being a gambling degenerate, I was at least following the few tracks around the country that were running horse racing, and even back in March and April, I was betting on South Korean baseball, when the Japanese league came back. So it's hard being a sports fan in this pandemic. It's been very difficult. We've been fortunate as a family that I was able to have my son, as you know, works in my law firm, and my daughters to come back. And my younger daughter, Casey, was in New York City working there. We got her out early March, and she's been with us here in Cape Cod. And we go back to my Boston house occasionally, but it's a little more isolated, not as many people down on Cape Cod. So it's worked out. It's been hard as a sports fan. There's no question about that. I think all of us as Americans want to get through this as quickly and as safely as possible.
All right. We have been talking to Ken Lakin. He is a trial lawyer and also a lawyer for pro athletes and actors. His website is lakinslaw.com. Again, that's LAKINS law.com. And Ken, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, John, it's always a pleasure. Stay safe.
You too, my friend. All right, everybody, be sure to enjoy the TVS Sports Network, a 24/7 streaming channel that features 60 years of classic and current TV sports. The World Football League, NASCAR, NASL Soccer with Pele, IWA Wrestling, the LPGA and Senior Golf, Regional PBA Bowling, college basketball, and major college football games. They are all on the TVS Sports Network. Watch for free at tvstvnetworks.com. And when we come back, Major League pitcher and pro golfer Rick Rhoden.
The TVS Television Network, for decades your home for great sports TV, is back. You can watch 6 TVS sports channels now streaming on watchyour.tv. It's free and it's on the internet as well as on Roku, Android, and iPhone and iPad apps. Watch TVS Sports Network, TVS Classic Sports Network, TVS Turbo Sports Network, TVS Women's Sports Network, TVS Tavern Sports Network, and TVS Boxing Network. That's TVS Television Network. 6 free channels at watchyour.tv.